Heat is essential to our daily lives. But Ireland has a heating crisis because 94% of our heat is generated by burning fossil fuels, mainly oil and gas. These fuels are not only driving global climate change, they're getting more and more expensive because we import nearly all of them. We have no choice but to change our heat source for our planet and our pockets. The question is, how can we tackle this monumental shift?
Since civilization began, humans have been using fire as a source of heat. I remember growing up around an open fire, and often it was the only source of heat in Irish homes. And if you got cold, well, sure, you just put on another jumper.
In the early 70s, just 1 in 4 Irish houses had central heating. The open fire was still the heart of every home. But by the 1990s, less than 20 years later, oil and gas had become the main heating fuel for 90% of houses. Today, those fossil fuels have given many of us the expectation of a cosy home, temperature controlled with the tap of a finger. But our luxury has been driven by cheap, subsidized fuel, a scenario that's changing fast. Global politics underpinning the fossil fuel trade have put us at the mercy of other countries who control the supply and the prices. The problem will only get worse. But changes are already afoot, a challenge that could actually help our fuel security. Many countries, including Ireland, have signed up to reduce their carbon emissions drastically.
On a global level, what's driving these changes?
Well, people might be aware of the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement and the more recent discussions in COP in Glasgow for COP26. From those discussions, targets are set at the European level, and they flow down to member state level and to us here in Ireland. And the Irish government then has responded and enshrined into Irish law some of the toughest climate targets in terms of a 50% emissions reduction by 2030 and net zero for 2050.
The team at the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland have been researching what needs to change in how we produce our heat.
Right now, about 14 million tonnes, or about 40% of all of the greenhouse gas emissions from energy use come from heat, and only about 6% of the energy we use for heat is from renewable sources. So the huge challenge is to really increase that number and halve our emissions by the end of 2030. So we've 9 years to do that, and to get to net zero by 2050. The biggest challenge really is to get the technologies deployed quick enough and to change our behaviour quick enough in order to get to net zero and take emissions out really fast.
What's at stake if we don't take up this challenge?
Well, the risk can't really be understated. We're in a global climate crisis right now, and if we don't address it, the science is telling us there could be very dire consequences for the human race. So we really need to pull together. So if we can win here, share our experience internationally, I think it's a huge opportunity for Ireland, and we've a chance of coming together as a human race and addressing the climate challenge. And the legacy we'll leave from that really is the chance of a healthy planet for future generations. And I think that's something we could look back and be proud of, and that future generations would literally thank us for.
The challenge is colossal. We must cut our emissions in half by 2030. That means we need ambitious new ways to produce heat. In Grange Gorman, on the TU Dublin campus, Geological Survey Ireland believed they could have part of the solution. Carbon-free heat pumped from deep in the Earth's crust. What is called deep geothermal energy has never been used in Ireland, but in cities like Paris, it already provides heat for 1 million people. The potential is massive. So the GSI are drilling the first ever deep geothermal exploration hole right in the city centre, going down 1 kilometre to see what temperatures they find. If it's hot enough, deep geothermal energy could transform our heat supply. Ger Cott is in charge of the drill rig.
It's an exploration drill rig. It's rotary coring, so we are cutting the rock. So this is your cutting surface. So that's what's down at the bottom, and different types of rock require different types of bit. At the moment, the process of retrieving the barrel is going to take about 15 minutes because we're nearly at 1 kilometre in depth. So we have to go down all the way with the overshot and retrieve the inner tube and bring it back to the surface. We have been here now 9 weeks. So as you get deeper, you get much less production in a day. It can be quite slow, yeah. Patience is a virtue when it comes to drilling. You really need to be patient.
It is hugely time-consuming, but the benefits of bringing these rock cores to the surface is massive. Dr. Aoife Braden is part of a team examining the cores to understand Dublin's deep geology.
These are the core that we've taken out of the borehole that we drilled over the last 2 to 3 months, and they're laid out in order on these trays. And then we will take these to our core store and they'll all be analysed further, and we'll do a full log of them and look at exactly what kind of rock, what it's made of, what kind of fossils are in it.
And what are the little numbers that I can see written here?
Yeah, so these numbers tell us the actual depth that the core came from. So what the guys do, our drill team will put markers as they're laying these trays out so that they know exactly. So when our geologists come along to map these and to record the information that's in them, they have markers at specific points that can tell them exactly what depth they came from.
So this piece of rock here, can I touch it?
Absolutely.
Came from 1 kilometre
Yes.
below the surface of the Earth.
Yes, it's at 1 kilometre now.
Can you tell from this how well geothermal will work?
Well, what this tells us is it'll give us more information about the geology that's underneath us. So this is really about kind of de-risking any geothermal project. So what we're trying to do is determine what kind of rock do you need to drill through if you want to go ahead and develop a geothermal project. So in our case, we can say, well, this top kilometre is going to give you various different types of limestone, but this is quite stable and solid, and a drill can get through it relatively easily compared to some other harder rocks. And we'll also see, apart from the type of rock, we'll also see if it's fractured or cracked or broken, and that will all tell us a bit more in terms of the geothermal prospects for it, if we're likely to get fluids moving around and that kind of thing. So although for anything geothermal we're likely to go beyond this 1 kilometre, it'll still give us a lot of information about it.
What do you think the potential is for geothermal energy production in Ireland?
Well, fortunately, we've moved on quite a bit now in the industry, so that it's more now to do with having the technology, really. It used to be that you had to go to a volcano to get the kind of temperatures to be worthwhile, but particularly for heat, and when we're talking about decarbonising the heat sector, the kind of geothermal energy that we expect to have in Ireland and accessible, so say in the top kind of 2 to 3 kilometres, has huge potential in Ireland for us. So although the upfront costs can be a lot more to develop something like a geothermal plant, over the lifetime it's a lot cheaper to run.
Because you're essentially getting heat for free.
You're getting heat for free.
The goal here is to provide carbon-free geothermal heat to the university campus and potentially the neighbouring residential homes via district heating. But for the plan to work, they need high temperatures deep underground. The global average is a rise of 30 degrees Celsius for every 1 kilometre you go down. But will the temperature in Dublin be high enough to use as a viable heat source? And if so, could this be the carbon-free heat supply we need to lower our heating bills? For 3 months, a team from Geological Survey Ireland have been drilling the deepest geothermal exploration hole ever undertaken in Dublin's city centre. If the temperature is high enough at the bottom, it could provide a carbon-free heat source for homes and buildings in the area. Today, the moment has come to find out.
Today we're going to measure the temperature at 1 kilometre below the surface of the Earth. We have an instrument called a fibre optic distributed temperature sensor. So we're going to lower that into a borehole that we have drilled. So we do know that the Earth gets hotter as you go down. In Ireland, we don't really understand how fast that happens. We don't have a lot of deep subsurface data on the geothermal characteristics. So if we're talking about geothermal district heating, we need to find temperatures of about 80 degrees, but we're not going to find that in the top kilometre today, but we will know more later today about how deep we'll have to drill in the future.
Oh, that's great. Well, let's get moving.
Okay, let's do it.
The fibre optic cable they're using has sensors that measure the temperature in increments the whole way down. Getting it to the bottom will take nearly an hour. While they wait, Dr. Sarah Blake of the GSI is testing their computer system, collecting data throughout the process.
So this is the profile. So you can see this is probably the look here, shallow groundwater temperature here, and the probe going into the groundwater, and then you can see the steady increase as we go down the hole. It'll take 12 minutes to do the whole measurement, and then we can see where we're at.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
The team have reached the bottom, and it's nearly time to reveal the temperature.
There's been great excitement among the team that have been involved in this project. It's taken 3 months nearly to get to this point. And so we've put a few bets on how hot the temperature is actually going to be at the bottom of the hole. What have you bet?
That's €1 ahead.
€1 ahead.
Winner takes all.
And buys the pint. And what temperatures are you going for?
What did you go for?
33 degrees.
33?
35, optimist. 34.
Ooh.
I'll say 30.
30?
I went slightly more pessimistic and said 29.
All right,
But I'm
on the
hoping
side
it's
of
higher.
caution.
Yeah.
This project has massive potential, but not only for the production of heat. The cores collected by the GSI will provide data for future projects. Right now, those projects are uncertain. We don't have a deep geothermal industry. But if we can lure drillers, engineers and geologists who currently work abroad in oil and gas back home, they could create an industry. There is a lot riding on this moment. The team are waiting with bated breath.
We have a result.
And?
It's been independently verified, and it's 38 degrees.
Wow! Fantastic! Hey!
€5.
Great stuff!
That is good, isn't it? That's amazing.
That's way more than expected.
I think the results today and the results of this experiment demonstrate that the geothermal energy is here beneath our feet, and we just have to go after it. So yeah, we're delighted.
Great.
Yay! Good stuff, guys.
The benefits of deep geothermal energy could be an endless carbon-free heat source. But it's all dependent on introducing what's called district heating, where buildings and homes are connected to a large central heat supply. Data centres are controversial because they use so much electricity. They also produce a massive amount of heat. Traditionally, this heat has simply been released into the air, completely wasted. But in Tallaght, Dublin's energy agency, led by its CEO Donna Gartland, hope to change this, using district heating.
So here we're at the Tallaght Energy Centre for the Tallaght District Heating Scheme. So this is an energy centre that will hold large-scale heat pumps and large-scale electric boilers. And the reason for this energy centre is that we're taking waste heat just from the data centre behind. So if you imagine, like, your laptop at home,
It gets hot.
It gets hot. So they have like millions of those inside there. And what we're doing is taking that waste heat from the data centre behind, and it's transported then through underground insulated pipelines to the buildings.
Wow, okay, so the heat that's generated by this building will then be almost recycled and used in other buildings to heat
Exactly.
them. How many buildings will be heated from this?
So at the moment in this first phase, we're looking at connecting the large Tala TUD campus and the civic offices belonging to South Dublin County Council and their libraries and their community buildings there as the first phase. But then the pipelines that are in the ground are big enough then have a capacity to connect lots more buildings in this area. So we have new apartment blocks that are going in across the road and the County Council are building their own new innovation centre and new social housing apartments as well behind their facilities. So all of these will be connected to the network. Once the pipeline is in your area, it's very easy to connect. So it can connect into existing buildings that have existing water-based systems, so like your radiator systems that you'd have at home. You just take out your gas boiler, put in a heat exchanger instead in this place, and your house is ready to be connected.
How unique is this project?
So this project is actually the first of its kind in the UK and Ireland. So it's the first project to recycle waste heat in Ireland. It's the first large-scale district heating system in Ireland, and also the first not-for-profit energy utility in Ireland. So
Loads of
a lot of firsts. There's a lot of innovation involved, and really, we're delighted that South Dublin County Council took this on and really drove it forward and to be the kind of first of its kind.
Incredibly, Donna and her team expect to be using the waste heat salvaged from the data centre by April 2022. First to be connected is South Dublin County Council. Their architect Eddie Conroy believes this project could be just the start.
Dublin itself generates more heat than it actually needs in terms of waste. Once you have a heat source, once you have a company that can deal with it, and we've set up a company especially for this. This company is called South Dublin District Heating Company, and what it is it's a company fully owned by the South Dublin Council, and we're hoping that as the first public utility, we'll be able to help all the other ones that are coming behind us, and all our documentation will be available, and all the work and the groundbreaking we've had to do will hopefully be spread out and enable people, so it won't be as big an ask for all the people coming along behind.
How important is it to the council to become carbon neutral?
So I suppose it's important in the sense of, in Ireland overall, about 40% of energy demand is for space heat. So if we're able to make this work, and if other people can learn that lesson for it, that's 40% of the carbon we generate could be addressed. And it's not small beer, the impact of the project.
There is potential for 1 million houses to use what is right now wasted heat. But while district heating is suitable for 50% of Irish homes, it only works in urban settings. It's not an answer for rural or one-off housing, most of which use oil, gas, peat or coal. For these, there's really only one solution: transitioning from fossil fuels to electric heat pumps. Often this process involves a home energy upgrade, which is why the government have set targets of at least 500,000 of them in the next 10 years. But what's not clear is who will fit the bill.
Laura, we have this huge target of retrofitting 500,000 homes. Do we have the money to do that?
Frankly, no. It's estimated that it will be 28 billion in the period to 2030. But I suppose the one thing we know is that, the government will not be paying that full 28 billion amount. No government, this is a challenge for every government everywhere. Like, home retrofitting is one of the big challenges and the big things every country needs to do to meet their own climate targets. No government has enough money just to say, okay, we'll come in and we'll do it all for you. So the government has said in the National Development Plan that they have 8 billion of that 28 billion. So that leaves a gap of about 20 billion. And where is that going to come from? So like it simply has to come from like individual homeowners deciding to either invest, savings they might have in retrofitting their homes, or else taking out a loan to retrofit a home.
The Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland offers grants of up to 35% to help pay for these upgrades, but many people can't afford the rest. Laura Houston believes a solution may be found in what's called a green mortgage, which offers extra low interest rates for houses with at least a B3 energy rating.
If we take one scenario, so maybe just take a 3-bed semi that is about 100 square metres, and let's assume that there's a mortgage balance of about 200,000 outstanding on that home, and it's about an E1 BER rating, so not very good, and the annual energy costs are about €2,000. Their energy bills before doing the retrofit would be €173 approximately per month. These are all assumptions based, and their mortgage repayments monthly on that 200,000 outstanding on their mortgage would be in the region of €1,055. So that gives us a total of €1,228 that goes out of that home every month on their energy bills and on their mortgage repayments. So that's before the retrofit. After the retrofit, they'd expect savings of about 50%, on energy savings of about 50%, so they'd expect their energy bill to reduce to €86. Now, as we said, the retrofit itself would have cost about 35,000, but this 35% SEI grant would be about 12,000, so the amount they had to finance was 23,000. And they decided to take out a green mortgage top-up for that on the rest of their outstanding mortgage. So post the retrofit, their monthly mortgage repayments are going to be €1,143. So in total, post the retrofit, they're going to be paying €1,229 a month on their energy bills and on their monthly mortgage repayments.
So there's only €1 a month in the difference between the pre-retrofit and the post-retrofit?
Yes.
So they're getting a warmer, cleaner, healthier, more carbon efficient home for €1 a month?
That's it.
That's amazing.
Now, these are really specific numbers, one very specific scenario, but if it stacks up right, that is the type of cost that can be involved.
It's definitely, for somebody like me who might be thinking about retrofitting a house in the future, it certainly makes it a whole lot less daunting to think about how much that might cost.
Yeah.
Many homeowners will qualify for a green mortgage if they're buying a house with a B3 rating. For those needing a retrofit, it could make the decision to take one on a no-brainer. But like with the district heating project in Tala, or the exciting explorations in Grangegorman, the retrofit challenge will take huge ambition. Decarbonising our heat is not going to be easy. But we can look to the past for inspiration on how change can happen quickly. It's not so long ago we were huddled around the fire.
Heat is an essential part of our daily lives, but we need to make huge changes in terms of how we source it. We need to decarbonise our heat supply and do it quickly. It's time to get creative and embrace the new technologies that we know exist, faster than we ever have before.